Brilliance Audio presents The Night Crossing by Robert Masello, performed by Gary Furlong. "Hurry," she said, consulting her pocket watch yet again. "There isn't much time." Dusk was fast approaching. Cesar, the oldest and thus the lead porter, grunted, and the two men behind him muttered something to each other that she couldn't make out over the rising wind. It wasn't hard to guess its tenor, however. They didn't like taking orders from a young woman, much less one of Romany ancestry. If she hadn't offered them more money than they'd make in a year of goat herding, she'd have had to make this climb alone, toting her tripod and camera along with all her provisions and her tent. Glancing to the east, she saw a bank of turbulent dark clouds racing toward them, like a legion of demons rushing to protect their lord. That lord reigned, if she'd plotted her course correctly, no more than a few hundred yards further up the craggy mountainside. It had taken her weeks to reach this remote stretch of the Carpathian mountain range, and a steady climb all day to get where she was going now. If legend had it right, then she had to be there, camera set up and ready, at the precise moment when the sun set on this All Hallows Eve, the night that witches flew through the skies and evil held sway over the world. But she was running late. The ascent had begun in flower-filled meadows and densely forested valleys, and her heart had been light. The air was cool but not yet cold, and rich with the scent of evergreen and pine. Red hawks had circled overhead. Fat, black bears had swatted fish from the rushing streams. Deer had peered fearfully from the trees. Apart from the 3 bearers she had hired in Sinai, she had not seen a human in many days. It was a primeval place with nothing of the modern world. No glaring gas lamps, sputtering electricity, or clanging trolley cars to disturb the natural quiet. And she had hiked on, head down under her wide-brimmed hat, wrapped in her own thoughts and observations, searching the ground for any errant clue or geological anomaly. "You'll never need spectacles," her father often proclaimed. "You see more than an owl." That's why he'd named her Minerva, Mina for short, after the wise goddess who kept a pet owl and saw everything. But making her way up the steep mountainside now, she'd have been glad of a bright lantern. She had to be careful not to trip over the jagged stones, or set a cascade of loose scree skittering down into Cesar, Anton, and Radu. The trees and brush had given way far below, and up here, roughly 8,000 feet above sea level, it was nothing but bald, wind-scoured rock and barren earth, pockmarked by caves as black as they were forbidding. "They're coming," she heard Radu say to Cesar, nodding toward the oncoming clouds. "We should turn around," Anton threw in. Cesar, the grizzled veteran, barked at them to shut their mouths. "What? Are you afraid of fairy tales?" Mina pretended not to hear, keeping her eyes on the uneven ground and ploughing ahead. What would she do, she wondered, if a full-blown mutiny erupted? And then, even as the sun passed below the trio of surrounding grey peaks, called the Old Women because of their fearsome, hunched-over shapes, she saw in the gathering gloom a flat plateau the size of a town square. But where a town square might be laid out before a church or city hall, this one was dominated by something else entirely. A massive, brooding figure, cut from the stone, easily 30 feet high and nearly half as broad. The sight of it stopped her in her tracks, and Cesar, who'd been watching the ground himself, bumped into her. Then he stopped too, and looked up. The figure was a sphinx, the mythical monster from Middle Eastern legend and lore, the great half-human, half-lion beast, resting on its haunches, whose baleful stare had gazed out over the Saharan desert for millennia, whose headdress, the iconic Nemesh, echoed the Egyptian pharaoh's own. But to find it here of all places, thousands of miles from the delta of the Nile or the Valley of the Kings, atop a nearly inaccessible Carpathian mountain peak, its huge empty eye sockets looking west toward the pale sun setting over the cliffs and treetops of neighboring Transylvania, was unnerving. Mina thought she had been prepared for it. She had heard the stories, she had seen the original monuments squatting on the desert sands. But she had not been as prepared as she thought. Not for this. Her mouth fell open in wonder,